In the heart of the forbidden forest, a once proud beauty now weeps, trapped by a monster she thought was her love. This is the true story of how pride led Agboma to her doom, and the man who dared to fight fate to save her. Agboma was the most beautiful girl in the land of Amamini, a village surrounded by streams and rich with the blessings of Mother Nature. Before her birth, her parents, Otitechukwu and Adogo, had been married for many years without a child. After countless prayers and sacrifices, the gods finally blessed them with a baby girl, whom they named Agboma. She was the pride of her parents, especially her father, who spoiled her but still made sure to raise her with values of respect and obedience. Yet, as Agboma grew older, she became prideful of her beauty. So prideful, in fact, that she hardly showed respect to anyone. Her mother tried many times to talk to her about how she treated others. Eneni, Agboma would say, tossing her braids. With my beauty, I don't think anyone would dare reject me. And besides, why should I respect them when I'm clearly more beautiful? Her mother would sigh. My daughter, there is more to life than beauty. What do you think will happen when that beauty fades? But her words always fell on deaf ears. Whenever Agboma wronged someone in the village, they would go straight to her parents to complain. Her parents, ashamed and sorrowful, would apologize and try to make amends on her behalf. Among the villagers, it was often said that the only impressive thing about Agboma was her beauty, because everything else about her, especially her rudeness, left much to be desired. Agboma heard these whispers but cared little. When she came of age, suitors began to arrive from far and wide. Yet none of them pleased her, and she made sure to reject each one in the most disrespectful way possible. Eventually, the men of Amamini gave up on her entirely. The village elders warned her, "If you continue like this, you will end up with no suitor at all." To this, Agboma always scoffed. "Not only will I have a suitor worthy of my beauty, but he will also be more handsome and richer than any man in this entire kingdom." And so the pattern continued. Men came, and Agboma rudely rejected them. Her parents grew worried. One night, Otitechukwu returned home to find his beloved wife crying. "My wife, why are you crying?" he asked gently. "Obim, is the situation with Agboma not enough to cry over?" Adogo sobbed. "Why would our daughter grow to be like this? After all the years we waited for a child, what have we done to deserve this?" Otitechukwu pulled her close. "I know, my wife. But trust me, she will change. She will accept a suitor soon. You will see." But soon, no suitor came at all. News of Agboma's behavior had spread far beyond Amamini. Still, she was not bothered. In fact, she felt relieved. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the village lived a young orphan named Akachukwu. He was handsome and well-mannered, the very opposite of Agboma. He farmed and hunted for a living and was dearly loved by the villagers. The elders wished he were their son, and many offered him their daughters in marriage. But Akachukwu always declined, gently, respectfully, and the love for him grew even more. What no one knew was that Akachukwu had secretly been in love with Agboma for a long time. But seeing how she treated her suitors, especially the wealthy ones, he believed he had no chance. He had no riches, only his hands, his farm, and his bow. So, he chose to admire her from afar and kept his love silent. Deep in the forest near the village, however, lived a dark and evil monster named Akoji. He had watched Agboma for some time and had grown obsessed. He decided he would marry her. But knowing she would never accept a creature like him, he went to the spirits and beings of the forest and borrowed parts, beautiful parts, to build himself a handsome, charming form. When he was finished, he looked like no man Agboma had ever seen. With confidence, the monster set out for the village to win her heart. Agboma was returning from the stream, a clay pot balanced on her head, when she saw him along the path. She froze. The sun caught his skin, his eyes sparkled like river stones, and his voice, when he greeted her, was smooth and deep. She was mesmerized. Immediately, she told herself, "This is him. This is the man I will marry. Hello, beautiful maiden. I'm lost and I don't know exactly which village I'm in," Akuji said, pretending to ask Agboma for directions. "Oh, you're in Amamini," she replied excitedly, then eagerly gave him detailed directions on how to reach his supposed destination. He thanked her and bade her farewell. But even after he left, Agboma couldn't stop thinking about the strange and handsome man she had just met. Her heart fluttered at the memory of his smile and deep voice. Meanwhile, Akuji, thrilled that he had successfully caught her attention, returned to the forest. He waited a week before reappearing in the village, this time, pretending their next encounter was purely by chance. They exchanged greetings, and their conversation flowed easily. It wasn't long before Akuji, who was in fact a monster in disguise, confessed his love for Agboma. To no one's surprise, she accepted it without hesitation. They began meeting regularly under the tall Iroko tree near the path to the stream, building what she believed was a blossoming love story. One day, while seated beneath the tree, Agboma asked, "Where is your village, and when will you take me there? I want to visit." Akuji replied with a charming smile, "Once you become my wife, I will take you to my home. We will live there happily, forever." Agboma squealed with delight at his answer. Meanwhile, back at home. "Agboma! Agboma!" her mother's voice echoed across the compound. "Where has this girl gone off to again? Has she forgotten she was supposed to go to Adiku's house to buy fresh oboroko for her father's evening meal?" Adogo muttered to herself while preparing the fire. When Agboma finally returned home, her mother scolded her for being late. But Agboma ignored her, waiting eagerly instead for her father to return from the farm. That evening, after dinner, Otitechukwu smiled in satisfaction and said, "My wife, this food is delicious." "Thank you, Nkem. I'm glad you enjoyed it, even though I couldn't put the oboroko, thanks to your daughter who was nowhere to be found," Adogo replied while clearing the dishes. "Agboma, come and take this inside," she called out. Turning to her husband, she added, "You need to talk to your daughter. I don't know what has come over her. She's barely home these days, and when she is, she's smiling to herself like someone lost in a dream." Otitachukwu sighed. "It's alright, my wife. I will talk to her." A week later, Agboma was once again with Akuji near the stream when Akachukwu passed by, returning from checking his traps in the forest. "Greetings," he called politely. But Agboma ignored him completely. Akachukwu, not surprised by her coldness, continued on his way, but he felt an uneasy chill seeing her with the stranger. Something about the man didn't sit right with him, but he brushed it off and walked on. Back at home, Agboma burst through the doorway calling, "Eneni! Eneni!" Her mother, who was inside the hut preparing their meal, came out quickly. "Kidu Aichi Obiyu, what is it now? Why are you screaming my name like that?" Adogo asked, startled. Agboma beamed. "Eneni, didn't I tell you and Papa that my husband would be the most handsome and perfect man? To the glory of our forefathers, he has come. He wants to marry me as soon as he proposes." Joy filled her voice, but her mother's face clouded with surprise and wonders as to her daughter's sudden excitement about getting married and who the man could be. That evening, when Agboma's father returned from the farm, she told him of Akuji's marriage proposal and that she has accepted. He then asked her, "Who is this young man, and where is he from?" Agboma smiled and replied, "Papa, he's from the neighboring village, and he's a well-to-do farmer there." "Alright then," her father said thoughtfully. "Bring him home tomorrow. I'd like to meet him myself." "Okay, Papa," Agboma replied before heading inside, her heart fluttering with excitement. As soon as they were alone, Adogo voiced her concern about their daughter's sudden interest in marriage, but her husband brushed it off. The next day, just as promised, she brought Akuji to introduce him to her parents. He greeted them respectfully and expressed his intention to marry their daughter. After asking him a few questions, Otitechukwu, though somewhat hesitant, finally said, "Go and come back with your people for the marriage rites." Akuji thanked him and got up to leave, with Agboma walking him out of the compound. As soon as they were alone, Adogo turned to her husband, worry still written all over her face. "Nkem, my spirit does not accept that man. There's something strange about him. I feel a dark omen surrounding this union," she said again. But her husband brushed it off just like he did the first time. "Oh, my wife, don't worry yourself unnecessarily. Our daughter has made her choice." Back in the forest, Akuji returned to the spirits and asked for their help. He needed people to accompany him for the traditional marriage rites. The spirits agreed and disguised themselves once more to appear as humans. On the appointed day, Akuji and his spirit entourage arrived at Agbomo's family compound. The marital rites were performed, and the bride price was paid. As was the tradition of Amamini, the bride was to be accompanied by 4 to 7 maidens to her husband's village. After saying an emotional goodbye to her parents, Agboma began her journey with Akuji and her companions. They traveled for 3 days, passing through dense forest and narrow footpaths. But something strange began to happen. At each forest they passed, 1 or 2 of Akuji's people would excuse themselves, saying they needed to ease themselves, and they would never return. Agboma noticed it but said nothing at first. Then Akuji's tone began to shift. The sweet, charming man she once knew began to speak harshly to her, losing his calm demeanor. As the journey went on, the spirits who had disguised themselves slowly began returning to the forest, revealing their true forms. Meanwhile, Akuji started returning the borrowed parts that made him appear human. His once handsome face began to change, his voice deepened into a growl, and his form twisted with each step. Agboma's heart began to pound. It was no longer a joyful journey to her husband's home, it was a slow descent into something dark and unknown. Now only she, her maidens, and Akuji remained. And even her maidens had begun to sense that something was terribly wrong. Finally, when they reached the deepest part of the forest, Akuji's true home, he no longer bothered to keep up the appearance of a man. The illusion faded. He was now back to what he truly was, a dreaded, terrifying monster. His eyes glowed like fireflies in the dark, his voice a rumble of thunder. By the time Agboma and the remaining maidens realized what had happened, it was too late. The forest seemed to close in around them, and fear seized their hearts. Akuji turned to them and growled, "Don't try anything foolish. If you do, I'll deal with you myself." He glared at Agboma, his tone now cruel and mocking. "Welcome to your new home. This is where you'll live from now on. You thought your beauty made you untouchable. You disrespected the old and mocked the young. Your mother warned you, but you never listened. Now, you'll learn a bitter lesson for your pride." Agboma trembled. Tears streamed down her face as regret washed over her. She remembered every word her mother had said, every chance she had to choose humility, but ignored. Now, not only was she suffering, but the innocent maidens who followed her were paying the price too. And so, their fate was sealed. They became prisoners in Akuji's dark domain, forced to do his bidding, fetching water, preparing meals, and singing songs to soothe the monster when he was in a foul mood. He killed 3 of the 7 maidens within 3 months, leaving the rest in constant terror. Back in Amamini village, Akechukwu was heartbroken when he heard Agboma had married and left. Though she had always been rude to him, he couldn't stop caring. To distract himself from the pain, he spent more and more time hunting in the forest. It so happened that one of his hunting grounds was near Akuji's territory. One fateful day, while checking his traps, Akechukwu heard a voice, soft, haunting, and sorrowful, singing a mournful song from deep within the trees. He paused. Who could be singing here? This forest is wild and dangerous. That voice sounds so sad, but also so beautiful. Curious and concerned, he moved carefully toward the source. What he found left him frozen. There, sitting beneath a tree, was Agboma, dirty, bruised, thin, and barely alive. Her once radiant beauty had withered away, replaced by exhaustion and despair. Agboma, he called in disbelief. What are you doing here? I thought you were married and living in your husband's village. Why are you here alone? Agboma, shocked to see him, broke down in tears. Akachukwu, he is not a man. Akuji is a monster. This forest, it's his home. I was deceived. I was proud, rude, and blind. And now others are suffering because of me. She cried harder. Please forgive me. Forgive me for the way I treated you. Forgive me for my arrogance. And if you survive this place, please tell my parents and the villagers that I am sorry. Akachukwu's face hardened, not in anger, but in resolve. I'm not leaving you here, he said firmly. Let's go, now. Agboma shook her head. No. I can't. The other girls are still here. They are prisoners too. I can't leave them behind. And you, Akuji will kill you. He's too powerful. But Akachukwu was determined. Then we'll find them. All of you. I'm not afraid of Akuji. No amount of pleading could change his mind. Agboma saw in his eyes the same bravery she had once ignored, and now, it was her only hope. Agboma led Akachukwu through the winding trails of the cursed forest, her voice low, trembling. The trees whispered with unseen eyes. As they approached the dark clearing where the remaining maidens were held, Akachukwu's hand brushed against the carved handle of his hunter's knife. It paused warm, almost alive. Then, he saw them, 4 maidens, huddled in fear, thin and warm. Their eyes widened with hope at the sight of him, but behind them loomed the monstrous figure of Akuji, his back to them, humming an eerie tune. Before Akachukwu could make his move, a sudden memory struck Agboma. Noem's mother, she once told me of a shrine, buried beneath the oldest tree in this forest. A sacred place where the ancestors judge and protect. If we can reach it, they may help us. Akachukwu nodded. Then we'll get the maidens, and we'll go. But Akuji turned, sensing something. His eyes glowed red, and his voice roared like thunder. You dare come for what belongs to me. The ground shook as vines slithered like snakes and wrapped around Akachukwu's legs. He fought them, but Akuji charged. With the last of his strength, Akachukwu shoved Agboma and the girls away. Run to the shrine. Find the tree, he yelled. Agboma hesitated, torn. But she turned, guiding the maidens through the forest, recalling the story her grandmother once told. Beneath the tree where 3 rivers kiss, the ancestors lived. Back in the clearing, Akachukwu was bloodied, bruised, but standing. Akuji laughed. You cannot defeat a god, boy. I don't need to, Akachukwu spat. Her spirit already has. Meanwhile, Agboma found the tree, a massive, ancient iroko with roots as wide as a hut. She fell to her knees. Ancestors. I was blind with pride. I brought this on myself. I asked not just for my life, but for theirs, and for him. Please, help us. Silence. Then, a wind rushed through the forest. The tree cracked open, revealing a soft golden light. A whisper floated. To undo what pride has sown, the heart must give. Agboma gasped. My heart. She didn't hesitate. She reached into her hair and pulled out the golden comb her father gifted her, a symbol of her vanity, and placed it at the root. Light exploded from the tree, shooting through the forest like lightning. Back in the clearing, Akuji froze, his borrowed parts began crumbling, returning to ash. He howled as the earth beneath him opened. Agboma and the maidens returned just in time to see Akachukwu standing victorious, bruised, but alive, as Akuji was pulled into the earth. The ancestors had answered. Finally they have been saved by the person she least expected. Let's go home, Akachukwu said as they all made their way out of the forest. When they got to the village, the people of Amamini gathered as Agboma explained what they had passed through and how the gods took pity on them and sent Akachukwu down their way to rescue them. Agboma knelt before the elders and the families of the maidens who had suffered alongside her. With tears in her eyes and a voice trembling with remorse, she begged for forgiveness. Her transformation, both inward and outward, was visible to all. The villagers, moved by her humility and changed spirit, forgave her. No one had ever seen the once proud girl so vulnerable, so real. Her parents, Nkem and Adogo, were heartbroken at the sight of their daughter, frail, scarred, her once vibrant presence dimmed. But more than sorrow, they felt gratitude. Their daughter was alive. And with care, love, and patience, Adogo nursed her back to health. In time, Agboma's beauty returned, brighter, but no longer boastful. She no longer looked at her reflection with pride, but with perspective. The lesson had been learned the hard way. As for Akachukwu, he returned to his life quietly. He neither expected nor sought praise for what he had done. It was an act of courage and selfless love. But the village chief, impressed by his bravery, offered him a great honor, the hand of his own daughter in marriage. Akachukwu gently refused. Instead, he stood before Agboma's family and the entire village and confessed, "I love Agboma. Not because she is beautiful, but because I've seen her at her worst and still found the strength to believe in her best. But I do not wish for her to marry me out of pity or gratitude. Let her decide when her heart is ready." Agboma, moved beyond words, thanked him, but asked for time. "Let me get to know you beyond the path to the stream or the hunt in the forest," she said. "Let me love you not because you saved me, but because you see me." And so began a courting ritual between them, simple walks, shared meals, stories beneath the moonlight, and laughter that healed what monsters had tried to break. A year later, under the same ancient tree that had once saved her life, Agboma took Akachukwu's hand and agreed to become his wife. They married in a celebration like no other, full of drums, joy, and ancestral blessings. Years later, they would walk those same forest paths, now safe and silent, with 2 children by their side, never forgetting the tale of how pride nearly cost them everything, and how love, courage, and forgiveness brought it all back.